All right, we are live. It is Tuesday. It's February 4th. The wind is howling outside once again. So if there is background noise from the wind, I am sorry. I apparently live in a windy tundra and it's always windy here. So welcome to upstate New York. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. So nice to see some folks joining us live for this edition of It's All Clutter. It's All Clutter is a weekly podcast. I call it the best decluttering advice show on the internet. I used to think it was the only one, but I think there might be some other ones out there. Good morning, DA. It's so nice to see everyone. So there's two main topics that we have to talk about today. Good morning, Marie. And the first one is I want to go back to the basic definition of clutter. So I actually looked up in the dictionary over here on my other screen. Brenda, you made it. Fantastic. I looked up the actual definition of clutter, and then I'm going to share with you what I believe a more modern and maybe urban dictionary definition of clutter might be. So clutter, it could be a verb, meaning to crowd untidily or fill with clutter. So as a verb, his apartment was cluttered with paintings and antiques. That is the sentence that is used to show the word clutter. As a noun, it's a collection of things lying about in an untidy mass. I read these definitions from the OED, the Oxford English Dictionary, and I feel like there is actually a lot of negative connotations and stigma just in the definitions. Clutter itself, I think, is very stigmatized. And it starts with these definitions here. Crowd untidily. I mean, that doesn't sound great. Or a collection of things lying about in an untidy mass. So no wonder when we think about clutter, we think about untidiness and it's so negative. I want to just remind everybody who's watching this that the clutter of today is what we would refer to in the past as resources. It's human nature to collect resources, and we just have access to way more resources than we've ever had before. If you've been in boot camp, and if you haven't, you should join our boot camp next week. But if you've been in boot camp, we discuss this at great length on day one. Clutter is resources. Now, that is the physical clutter in our house. It's a collection of resources that we are saving for the future. My personal definition of clutter, and really the thing that guides everything we do at Clutter Boss, is anything, and DA knows it, anything that impedes forward momentum. So clutter is anything that is standing in your way. It's not negative or positive. It just is something that is blocking your progress. One of my clients once said to me, my husband does not understand my clutter. He thinks I should just throw out everything. If dealing with clutter were as simple as just throwing out everything, we wouldn't be here right now. It is so much more complicated. That's why when we approach decluttering, or when we talk about clutter, we cannot limit the conversation to the physical stuff. It is so much more than that. In the comments, I would love to know, how have you been surprised by the direction your decluttering has taken? Like, has it been connected to your finances? Has it been connected to your relationships? Clutter has an emotional component, and to be dismissive of that emotional component is to be dismissive of the person who is dealing with the clutter. And that's why when we're dealing with our family members and we are dealing with the stigma attached to clutter, it feels so deeply personal because it is a reflection in many ways of the journey of our life. And so when we approach clutter, instead of feeling all of these negative emotions, instead of talking about it in a negative way, instead of shaming people by using the word hoarder and hoarding, let's just remember that there's a big emotional component attached to clutter. It's connected to our identity. And let's be respectful of this process that somebody who is trying to declutter or somebody who is dealing with clutter is working on, because it is fraught with emotion and it is not easy. And going down this path means that you're trying really hard to do something really difficult. And can we just please acknowledge that, and stop being so, as a society? I know everybody in our Clutter Boss world really is on the same page as this, but if you're new to my YouTube channel, if you've never been here before, understand we are judgment free, because clutter is emotional. It represents so much more than just the stuff. And we are here to honor that journey that got you to this point and celebrate the fact that you are moving forward and trying to figure out how to declutter in a way that does not take away from who you are and who you want to be. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I'm just reading in the comments here. It's very complex. So, at Clutter Boss, we are judgment free, period. We do not care how much clutter you have, how long you've lived with clutter. We understand that this is so much more than just the stuff. And then, if you're looking for support with your decluttering, whether you're looking for in person support or you're looking for a program online, make sure. Now, of course, I think we have the best programs. I know we have the best programs. But if you're looking around, seeing what's available to help you tackle your clutter, I would really question, is there judgment in this group? If I post a picture of my house, am I going to get negative feedback for it? Are people going to refer to me as a hoarder? Because that is totally not appropriate. Hoarding disorder is a medical diagnosis, and it's really poorly understood by the medical community. So never mind the average person walking down the street, right? If you hire somebody to help you declutter, ask them what's their definition of clutter, and ask them, are they going to force you to let go of something? It can be very, very triggering to be forced to let go of your stuff. And actually, when you hire a professional to come into your house, you open up that door, you are at this extremely vulnerable moment, and they have any sort of judgment towards your living environment, or they tell you you have to throw out something, that can actually cause somebody to hang on to clutter way more tightly. That's also why it is never okay to throw out somebody else's stuff. The only sort of gray area or caveat to that is if you are dealing with a family member who is in an unsafe living environment, that's a next level sort of situation, and that would require bringing in many professionals to help if possible. I still don't recommend throwing out somebody else's stuff, even in that situation, but I understand that there can be a timeline that is very tight, and the situation may be just a little bit different than somebody who's working on decluttering and not living in an unsafe living environment. So those are my thoughts about decluttering and clutter. What is clutter? Another thing is, if you're going to effectively tackle your clutter, make sure you have the right supports around you, because clutter is emotional and because it is attached to so many other things. Sometimes you really need to have other experts help you out, maybe a therapist. In Clutter Boss Academy, we have a whole panel of expert coaches. We have a psychotherapist, we have a financial planner, we have all sorts of experts to support this process, because it's not just about the stuff. It is never just about the stuff. So move forward, let go of the shame that you might have around your clutter. Understand that there is a way to do this that respects where you have been, where you are going, respects who you are, why you have your clutter, and seek that type of support for your decluttering. I didn't intend for this to be a sales pitch for Clutter Bootcamp, but I will say we have Clutter Bootcamp coming up next week. We have done hundreds of Clutter Bootcamps at this point. Our Clutter Bootcamp is a tried and true process. It is completely judgment free. It is the starting point for you right now. Doesn't matter where you are with your decluttering. If you start and stop, if you've made some progress and then kind of had a backslide, if you are just so overwhelmed, you don't know where to start, or if you've made a ton of progress and you're ready for the next level of decluttering, Clutter Bootcamp is an incredible program. It's 5 days. We do it every 6 to 8 weeks or so. Consider joining. It's $25 if you use the code take five. Take five. I'll post all the details in the comments. But Bootcamp helps, Margie. That's a great question. Bootcamp helps because it gives you a very specific path forward in a very respectful way. And it talks about things not just decluttering. We work on shifting our mindset. We work on putting clutter into a context that makes sense. You have live coaching support. So there's 5 different coaches who deliver 5 different lessons throughout the course of the week. You have a community that is cheering you on. It is just so different. Another thing I will say about clutter, decluttering, the professional organizing industry, most people do not recognize how critical it is to have a community supporting you as you work on decluttering. And that is where Clutter Boss is so very different from everything else. We have incredible communities that support you every step of the way. So having somebody who really understands what you're going through and who's cheering you on makes a huge difference. Terry, I'm so excited. We'll see you in boot camp next week. So just, just notes, things to think about if you're struggling with clutter. There is a different way to do this. There is a different way to communicate with the people around you about your clutter. There's just different ways to do this that are way more respectful of you and who you are. Okay, so those are my thoughts on clutter and decluttering and what is clutter. My next thing that I want to talk about in this episode of Ask a Clutter Boss is functional space versus storage space. So we get a lot of questions and comments about how much to keep, how much should I store, how do I know, what to let go of. And this is another thing that we touch upon in bootcamp also, but I want to talk a little bit about functional space versus storage space. Functional space is any space that we could use to actually serve a functional purpose. Think about folding your laundry. If you don't have a flat surface to fold your laundry, you don't have the functional space that you need to support that everyday task of doing laundry every day, every couple of days. We need to have functional space to support everything that we do in our lives and in our homes. So cooking, we need to have functional space. That means clear counter space for actually preparing food. We need to have a functional oven. If you're storing things inside of your oven and you have to take that stuff out and put it on the counter, so you need all of the functional space that you can get in your home in order to function properly. And that's, in order to wake up and be able to get through every task in your day. If you don't have the functional space to support that, it just complicates. And if we feel overwhelmed, this is why we don't have the functional space in our house to support the life that we need to live. We want to walk into our closet, so we need a clear path into the closet. We want to be able to see all of our clothing. So open up a drawer. We want to be able to put away our clothing. A lot of times we don't even have the functional space to put away our clothing. We have piles in front of our dressers, piles on top of our dressers. Everything is really piled up. And it's just difficult to access the clothing that we need when we need it. Even finding the clothing requires functional space and functional storage. What we tend to do in our homes is look at every empty square inch of space and think, oh, I can just store something there. We don't need more storage. We need more function. And it's the exact opposite of the idea that we're sold. If you just have the right system, if you just have the right boxes and bins, if you add storage, you'll have more functionality. But what you actually have is more storage and less functionality. So when you look at your space and think about your day, think about how your space is aiding you in functioning every single day in every single task that you do. If you have to make a phone call and find a sheet of paper for that phone call, like you have to make an insurance phone call, you have to call some company and ask about something, but you need the supporting documentation. How easy is it for you to find that documentation? These are all really important things to think about when we think about our decluttering and our goal. What is the goal of decluttering? It's creating a much more functional home, a home that supports your everyday, a home that makes it easy for you to do those tasks that we have to do every single day: cooking, cleaning, laundry, picking up and putting away. I mean, all of this stuff, we need to have the space to support it. And empty space is way more functional than crowded space. So, as a general rule, the more empty the space, the easier it is to be in that space and to function. Now, that's not to say that we're going for totally empty everything. This is, the idea of minimalism is a little too much for most people, I think. But when you look at your kitchen, do you have enough functional space in that kitchen to support how you're living your life every single day? That's a good question to ask yourself. The smaller the space, the more function that we need to pull from every aspect of the space. So if you have a small galley kitchen, you really need to have less stuff on your counters because you don't have a lot of counter space. So you want to optimize functionality and reduce storage. And when you kind of look at your space through these different set of eyes, it can be pretty clear what needs or what percentage of stuff needs to be decluttered in order to have that functional space to support your life every day. So one question that I ask myself a lot is, these things that I'm keeping, are they supporting my life right now? So if I have stuff in storage, and knowing that the more that I store, eventually that's going to creep into the functionality of my life, right? The more things I have in my closets, in my cabinets, on my countertops, on my floors, the more I have, the less function I get from my space. So if I can declutter and have less stuff in storage, ultimately it makes everything more functional. So when I look at what I'm storing, I ask myself, is this relevant to my life today? Is it supporting my life right now? If I have sporting equipment from sports that my kids no longer do, no, that's not that's not supporting my life at all, and it's taking away, not only is it not supporting my life, it's not relevant to anything we're doing right now, and it's taking away from the functionality, the overall functionality of my house. Is this making sense? um so it's just a really good way to look at the space that you have and assess if you need to declutter more, which the answer is probably yes. It's always been my answer. um, if you need to declutter more, and could you make your home more functional just by freeing up more space? I'll also say that when you have clearer floor space, your house is inherently safer, and you deserve to live in a safe home. Period. You deserve to have a home that you love, but you deserve to live in a safe home. So give yourself that gift of safety by looking at your floor space and decluttering that area too. All right, Margie, let me see if I can post a comment in here. Oh yeah, I believe this is our link to sign up, clutterboss.com/clutter-bootcamp. And then I can tell you that you can save $5 with the coupon code SAVE5. So if you go to sign up, it's $25 for the week, so $5 per day. You're going to end up saving money when you do boot camp. But you can also save $5 right now with that coupon SAVE5. So we talk a lot more about what is clutter, how to look at your clutter differently, what is floor space, what is storage space, the functionality of our home, questions to ask ourselves, our clutter and our health, all of these really important contextual things to think about connected to clutter. It's really a just different way of looking at everything that we have and everything that we want to keep in our lives to support that life that we want moving forward. So we're going to wrap up our Ask a Clutter Boss. But at the end of most Ask a Clutter Bosses, I remind you and encourage you to fight for the life that you want, fight for yourself. And oftentimes, the only person you need to fight against is yourself. So we tend to stand in our own way. We think, should I do this? Should I not do this? We spend a lot of time in our heads just debating, going back and forth. Take action. Take action. If you find yourself fighting against the urge to get up and do something, if you feel yourself kind of hanging on tightly to every single thing that you have, can you shift this just a little bit? Can you instead fight for your future? The only way to predict your future is, I saw Denise posted this, the only way to predict your future is to create that future. Fight for that. You deserve a space that nourishes your soul and keeps you safe. You deserve a home that you love, and you have to fight for that in this day and age, in 2025, where we have so much stuff pouring into our homes, into our world, into our minds. We have to fight for our sanity. We have to fight for the space. Fight for it. Fight for yourself, because you are so worth it. And I hope to see you next week in Clutter Bootcamp. Have a great day, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us live today. If you're watching on replay, just say #replay in the comments and we'll come back and say hi later on. Love you all.